All right, y'all. Welcome back to Really Good Soup. And, back with another review of a Peak chapter. It's been a little bit. Oda's been sick, and luckily he's on the up and up now. And we got a planned break coming up next week, which is honestly fine because the healthier Oda is, the better. This chapter, it was an amazing chapter, but I had such a mixed range of emotions. So yeah, I can't wait to start talking about it. If you guys have been liking these reviews, please throw me a like or a subscribe or a share, possibly, and maybe check out some of the other reactions that I have on my channel. I'm currently watching Jujutsu Kaisen, and I'm also watching Black Sails right now, and of course I'm watching the One Piece anime. So feel free to check those out if you guys are interested. But yeah, let's get back into talking about Peak. So yeah, last time we had seen Rayleigh saving Shaki from Summers, and we're now basically catching up with a little bit of the aftermath of that. We see, Rayleigh like swooping in to save the day, carrying Shaki in his arms, and Shaki just, given everything that Shaki's been through today, she's in absolute fucking heaven right now. Like, you could even see like the smile on her face as Rayleigh's running away with her. And Rayleigh even says, like, there's nothing I need to say to you, Shaki. And she's just like, don't say it. I already know. But you know, it would be cool if everything around them wasn't just going to shit, but good for Rayleigh and good for Shaki. So obviously, after Rayleigh is making his getaway, we see a bunch of the other Roger pirates trying to hold off either Marines or members of the Rocks pirates, and all of them, expressing their jealousy for Rayleigh. But what's kind of funny to see is like we see Shiki of all people like being like reprimanding what looks like either his own crew or Rox's crew not lay a finger on Shaki. He already has accepted that Rayleigh's got him, but like even then he's like, don't you dare lay a finger on Shaki, which, props to Shiki for that. We love a true ally. Next we see, every other pirate on there now realizing Shaki is not one of the prizes, just to turn their focus onto the treasure, which then gives us a little cut to Kuma and Ivankov, to a scene that we've already seen before back when we originally saw God Valley, but we get to see Oda, draw it from a couple of different like angles. Like we obviously see, both of them picking up like Kuma's fruit and Kaido's fruit, and then very next panel we see Big Mom swoop in and like chokehold Ivankov while grabbing Kaido's fruit, like we had seen previously back when we originally were in the God Valley flashback. So it is cool that like Oda's like actually redrawing some of these. But yeah, then we see Kuma eat his fruit. We see Big Mom at least get away with Kaido's fruit, and then we cut to like some more clashes between the Rocks pirates and the Roger pirates. And interestingly enough, we see somebody that looks a lot like Marco, which I'm just gonna assume that this is his dad, because like Marco at this time I think would just be like a kid or not even born. But yeah, like he fights the same way Marco does. He looks almost exactly like Marco, like his face. So I'd bet that that's probably Marco's dad. But we also get to see a little bit of a Stussy in action. We get to see a little bit of a Silver Axe in action. We also get to see a little of a Sunbell or Barbell. I forget which one of them it is. But it honestly could be either one, given that both Rocks and Roger's crew is on this island. And then we cut to a more interesting part of the chapter, because it's starting to, crumble the walls, I guess, of like, the pillars of the Garp slander that have been holding true for this entire time, that Garp didn't know about like what was happening on here. Apparently he did not, actually. Which for a while we thought like, Garp, is there any possible way that you don't know what's happening here? Which even then, like even if Garp is saying like this is like the first time he's seeing any of this, like how long have you been in the Navy, and like how long have you at least been in like somewhat adjacent to the world nobles? He even knows that they go on their little field trips sometimes, and you didn't notice that, oh, their whole island's getting erased. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that, God Valley itself is not world government affiliated. So maybe there's not any reason for word of any of that to ever reach Garp, because, the Marines are only interested in protecting world government affiliated civilians. Like it's starting to look a little bit better for Garp, but we'll have to see, like, especially how he deals with all the other events, after this chapter, but also just how he deals with what he's seeing currently right now. So, two other things about this particular scene struck me as interesting. One, obviously, is the mention of the guy who once questioned what was happening around here, like this native cleansing competition, but then he mysteriously vanished from the ranks of the Marines. So I can only assume that they're talking about the man marked by flames, Hinokizu, because we can only imagine. Obviously, it makes sense that the government would want to disappear a guy that knows too much. But back when we had first heard the Blackbeard pirates talking about Hinokizu, Shiryu suggested that Hinokizu could be a member of the world government because it would be like it would be the way to keep pirates from actually achieving their goal of finding the One Piece. But yeah, that theory is now a little bit stronger now, especially, yeah. We need one more person who was relevant during this time of like Rox and Roger and like all these other people that went on to at least know about the poneglyphs or to have a poneglyph for themselves. So it would make sense that another key figure around this time, probably obviously before God Valley, also knew something about the world government and the truth of all of this, and probably has some sort of tie to the poneglyphs as well. I'm sure we'll find out more about that, like probably not in this flashback, but some point in the future. So that was the one interesting thing. But obviously, the more important thing is we got another Bogart upscale. That's right, baby. You see all of this shit going around around all of the Marines, around all the Rocks pirates and the Gods Knights and everything. Everything is going to absolute shit. People are just like causing destruction everywhere. And look who's coming out unscathed right now. My boy Bogard. It's only a matter of time till Bogard gets his own little official introduction and starts slicing and dicing some Gods Knights. I can't wait to see it, and I'm betting it's gonna happen in this flashback. I'm just waiting for it. But yeah, Bogart upscale. Moving on, we're back to Rox's perspective, and we see Rox and Eris and TH being chased down by not only the Gods Knights, but what looks like to be some dummy reverse side figures, because we see, their little horns, we see their little pitchforks with their wings and whatnot. So Emu is at least on the island in some sort of capacity, or he's like, telepathically controlling one of the Gods Knights like he does with Gunko. So we know that he's at least there to perform this dummy reverse eye technique. Unless he's able to do that shit like all the way from Marijua, which kind of would just beg the question, why hasn't he been doing that this whole time? So I have a feeling Emu is already somewhere nearby here. What's kind of like more heartbreaking to see is like, Rox, obviously he recognizes some of the people that got dummy reverse side, that being his own father and his own grandmother, which honestly, I'm not gonna lie, the first time I read through this, TCB's translation calls them like pops and granny, and I kind of just thought that was his like informal way of just saying like, hey, old man or granny, like just like not necessarily familial. But apparently everybody else is saying that this is his actual biological dad and biological grandmother. That is kind of interesting to see. Like, I guess we never really learned his dad's name. Maybe there's still time. I don't know. Yeah, it is just generally kind of heartbreaking to see. We've learned so much about Rox, and we've now we've heard so much about Rox, and then during this flashback, we're starting to learn more and more about him. We start to learn like how like compassionate of a guy he was. Like he was still like, a scummy piece of shit, like as a pirate all around, but he still had a sense of family. He still had some sort of sense of community. Like it does kind of hit a little bit hard to see, his own Davy clan especially being turned against him. Now what's kind of cool to see in the next panel is how much damage he's actually giving to the Gods Knights, like how much trouble he's giving these Gods Knights right now. I'm gonna say like it's not looking great for my boy Garling right now. Like we see him with just straight up like slash through his head that's still like on the verge of recovering, because Rox has obviously been using advanced conquerors hockey. It's funny enough, like even though the Gods Knights are struggling, they're still viewing this whole discovery of the Davy clan thing as like a stroke of luck. And now they've kind of like confirmed that Rox is a member of the Davy clan. So now they'd be like, yo, if we could take out Rox right here, imagine like how pleased Emu will be. And it seems like, Emu would be very pleased, because what Rox describes happens to the Davy clan. Once anybody with the Davy name gets caught, according to him, it makes hell seem like a lukewarm bath. So you can only imagine like whatever kind of torture that the celestial dragons normally put people through, like even like people like the Buccaneers and Kuma. Whoever has that Davy name gets like what 50 fold or something like that, which is kind of insane. Really interesting to see here is like Eris is listening to all of this, and she is totally on board. She knows that Eris herself was a pirate. Like she mentions like in a flashback of meeting Rox's dad and Rox's mom or grandmother. She proclaims herself as a member of the Davy clan now, which I originally thought that it was Rox talking to them, that like Rox wasn't originally a Davy, and then he was like, now I'm a Davy. But no, it makes more sense that yeah, it's Eris. She was a pirate herself before she got settled down and had Teach. So I'm curious to see if we're gonna get more of her backstory later on, because it makes more sense now that Rox was like like back a couple chapters ago when we found out that he'd actually like hooked up with somebody. You could see like the smile on his face and like how like happy he seemed. So like it would kind of make sense that he like did fall for another pirate, especially as somebody that worships Davy Jones. But then we get an exchange with which kind of just like reinforces that idea further, that Eris, she's totally like, she understands, she's on the same page, and like she gets what's going to happen to her, but she's not like some helpless damsel in distress that can't even protect a single child. Otherwise, she, in her own words, like Rox would not have fallen for her. It's a very like cute highlight of their relationship right there. Yeah, obviously Rox doesn't like the sound of that either, but she's still convinced that yeah, she could protect their child. And interestingly enough, she said, "Hey, you go deal with these guys right now. We're gonna go make our escape, and we're gonna meet up where in Lulusia of all places." So something tells me that when Emu decided to actually destroy Lulusia, it wasn't just because of its close proximity or whatever reason he gave at the time. I feel like there is like some other deeper reason for it. So I'm very curious to see, because like Oda can't just keep mentioning Lulusia like this again and again if it was just like a close proximity thing. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, now we see Eris and Teach separate from Rox. And Garling, he's pretty excited. It's like, okay, yeah, now we'll see how you really fight. Now that you don't have your wife and child to hold you back, let's see what you got. Which is a very interesting thing coming from the guy who just had his like face slashed up a few seconds ago, and we see Rox don a pretty angry kind of face and just launch a whole slash against Garling and probably whoever else was behind him, because he slices up a whole part of the island, and like he's ready to take them on. Like he says, like, stay with me here. I insist, bring that shit. And sadly enough, we see Eris running away, and we see Teach, still wide eyed, looking back. This is basically the last time he ever sees his dad, assumingly like he doesn't see it after this. It just reinforces the idea more and more that Teach is the reason that he doesn't ever sleep is just straight up from like traumatization from God Valley. Like maybe like the constant worry that if he falls asleep, like he as a member of the Davy clan will be snatched up, and horrific things will be done to him. Which like that sounds more compelling than just like it being a biological trait or whatever. So yeah, as they make their way off the island, we cut to one of my other favorite parts of this chapter, the origin of Kaido eating his devil fruit. And it kind of contradicts what we had originally heard when Big Mom first mentioned it, because she had basically said like, hey, Kaido, remember, I'm the one that gave you your devil fruit. And now we know what actually happened. It was less so of her giving the devil fruit, and more so she did the stealing. He just swooped in, smacked her in the face with his club. Luckily, before she got the chance to like stash it away, and like quickly just took it, ate it, and gave us this little like amazing shit-eating grin right here, which people in the community have actually pointed out is like the closest he's ever looked to his old silhouette before we knew what Kaido looked like. Back when I forget, it was Garp or whoever mentioning like the four emperors, and like Kaido, he just looked like a little like triangular sort of like generic like evil faced grinning guy. And like that's kind of like what we're seeing right now. And it is kind of funny, just like kind of just being that fucking immature that like he had to just like. I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it makes sense that Kaido uses like the underhanded techniques because like King of the Frauds is all I'm gonna say. Like he didn't want to run it back with Odin, so screw it. I beat Odin. Yeah, whatever. At least he got his devil fruit finally, and now he can shut the fuck up about it. But it is funny to see how pissed Big Mom gets afterwards because she now also like we see that she was meant to save this for Katakuri, and like maybe she at that time she saw that potential in Katakuri, and now like we kind of see like why she has a tiny bit of disdain towards him because he's not nearly as strong as he could have been. But it would have been interesting to see if Katakuri actually had Kaido's fruit, because there's no chance in hell Luffy would have won if Katakuri had this fruit instead. What are you gonna do against the fucking island lifting flames or whatever? But anyway, more heartbreaking but still artistically pleasing panel that we see is the juxtaposition of Dragon running away with Shanks, claiming that he's not gonna let him die, and Eris running away with Teach, claiming that I'm not going to let you die either. So like we see the kind of birth of this like rivalry, not even rivalry, just like these two prominent figures that are going to end up, having their own little like I guess rivalry and conflict in the future. But it's funny to see right now they're just being portrayed as just lives that need to be saved to carry on like a future will. And on the next page, we cut to the Rodgers like seeing like the full depth of the treasure that they get to make way with. They get to see all the gold and the riches, and even somebody points out there are a few devil fruits among them too. So we see it is interesting that like both the Rocks Pirates and the Roger Pirates at least found some devil fruits, outside of Kaido that they ended up using later on. I don't think it was probably anybody from the Roger Pirates because as far as I've seen, we haven't seen anybody from the Roger Pirates use a devil fruit that's like been canon. So I imagine that a bunch of those devil fruits went to the Rocks Pirates instead. And we see now more and more of the Marines make landfall and try to make sure those pirates don't escape. And we see Garp just like still trying to question like what is the justice here. And as the Marines start to come in, we see some of the slaves like start to get hopeful, being like, hey, it's the world government, surely they'll rescue us, even though they're the ones that put us in this situation in the first place. And announcements goes out like reminding everyone, God Valley is not affiliated with the world government, therefore ... which I can only assume means we're about to get a buster call. We then cut to Kuma trying to express he wants to save as many people as possible. And during this aftermath, like Saturn is just chilling up on like a cliffside somewhere, just watching everything unfold, and he's having a private conversation with Emu. And Emu is just also like, apparently he's both on the island to do Adami Reverse Eye, and he's also talking to Saturn. It's somehow, so maybe he doesn't need to be on the island to do the Dami Reverse Eye. But in either case, he's wondering like, hey, is Rox dead yet? And Saturn's like, about that. One, like Rox is not dead yet, and two, so much destruction is being caused in the island, we might bring about the birth of something entirely new, which I don't know what the fuck that's supposed to mean. Apparently, there's some other huge secret on God Valley, because like it just becomes like one huge secret after another. And meanwhile, all of this like conversations going on, we see Kaido finally start to get the hang of his devil fruit, which I think is a tiny bit cheap that Kaido like just gets to go full dragon immediately. Like I know the model is the Seiryu or whatever, but like you'd think that he at least has to become the fish first and then like jump up the waterfall and then become the dragon in the traditional way. But nope, he's just immediately a dragon. Before we like see him like actually start to have fun with his fruit, we get a pretty heartwarming like little section of Kuma actually saving a bunch of the people that were like really desperately like hoping that, oh my god, we're finally gonna get free. And you see Kuma granting all of them like thanking them. We had lost all hope, we thought we'd never survive, thank you. And it's really fun to see, man. You need a little bit of heartwarmingness like in like the midst of all of this chaos right here. Especially once we see that last thank you being said, because I don't think that's any of the island people. I think that's Emu saying thank you to Saturn, being like, hey, thanks, Saturn. Now I know the full situation. Now it's time for Emu to shine, which he does because we see a giant, blast of Conqueror's hockey that shakes up Roger, Garps, and Rocks. And we see the little silhouette of transformed Saturn. So we know we're about to get a little bit of a Gorosei, mythical zone action. And before that, we also see an incredible silhouette of Rocks, just like pure aura right there, as he exclaims, like, yo, you dare use my family against me? I'm about to kill all of y'all. And just like, look at that. Just like him, just like putting his sword to the ground and just like had the flames behind him. Just that dark aura right there. And it looks a lot like kind of similar to like, the silhouettes that we saw originally before we like knew of Rox's designs. Like he has like the spiky hair in the back and everything. And what's really hilarious to see is a little bit, well, both hilarious and a little bit heartbreaking for me, because my Garling stocks were kind of high. And looking at this just one panel right here, Garling got cleaned up by Rocks. Like cleaned up. Like I don't think Garling ever stood a chance against Rocks. Like look at him. He's just on the ground just like, ugh, damn it. Like he was so excited, like, oh boy, you don't have your wife and child to hold you back now. Now what are you going to do? And like he immediately gets packed up. And it's going to bring me to another discussion about the Gods Knights that I'll say after all of this. But moving on, we get to the final page of this chapter. Probably my favorite part of this whole thing is like we see the camaraderie between Rocks, Whitebeard, and Kaido, of all people. Like it's such a simple exchange. It's like just a straight up like respect amongst like powerful comrades. Rock saying like, hey, there's nothing in it for you here. You don't like have to stay behind. And Whitebeard just like, I'll stay behind. You've always picked up my tab. Like, I got you, buddy. And Kaido, he's just fucking like excited as hell that he has a devil fruit finally. And he's being a little shit about it. Just be like, hey guys, look at me. I got my own little power. Ha ha ha. And he's like, fuck it. I'll stay behind and test out my strength with you guys. And Rox is just like happy. He's like, hey, at least somebody's having fun here. Meanwhile, Whitebeard and Garp and Roger, they're all just like, yeah, that's all cool and whatnot, but what are we looking at right now? And what are we looking at right now? Like, we see what I am assuming is Saint Saturn and Emu fused together. Where Saturn's head is supposed to be, it's just straight up Emu. So I'm thinking that Emu might have been doing the Dami Reversi through Saturn. I'm not sure. That's the only way I can like explain how there were Dami Reversi people like already there before Emu made this presence right here. Yeah, it's going to be very fucking interesting to see like how they take this on. But like even more interesting is how Rox describes what they're seeing. He's saying that if I had to call it anything, that thing represents the world, which recontextualizes just everything that Rox has been about, where he's like, I'm going to be the one to destroy the world, or my goal is the world. I'm going to take you to the top of the world. And what does Blackbeard want to? The world. It also recontextualizes some of the things that we've seen in possibly the Harley. Like, you know, the third world, the second world, the first world. Like, all of this could, like, just be leading back to Emu himself as, like, some sort of personification of the world. And it really just, like, bolsters the theory that Emu is the sea god. Because, like, you know, the sea is most of the One Piece world. So it would make sense if they referred to the world as like, you know, the sea itself too. But like, yeah, man, I'm fucking excited to see where this goes. It's hilarious that this isn't even Herald or Loki's flashback anymore. And honestly, I'm totally fine with it. Give me like a whole arc of just God Valley. It right in the middle of Elbath, I guess. Like I'm okay with that. So 15 out of 10 chapter. Let's go into some of the tweets that I really liked. The big one is pretty much what my thoughts have been about the Gods Knights right now. Tell me if there's a single lie on this meme right now. Meet the Hype Tool Knights. Can they handle the top tiers? Nope. Can they handle Yonko commanders? Nope. Can they handle women, children, and slaves? You bet your ass. and like call them 077, zero top tiers defeated, 70,000 slaves hunted, 762 times saved by Emu Sama's regen. And like, but people were thinking like, oh, the Holy Knights are like gonna outclass the admirals and they're the final saga villains. Garling's getting packed up like it's like a regular Tuesday for rocks. Yeah, like I don't know, man. The God's Knights, they've just been feeling like less and less intimidating, especially now that we have like all the advanced Conqueror's Hockey users. Like, if you're not using advanced Conqueror's Hockey, like, yeah, then the God's Knights are a problem. But if you are, and if you're on the scale and the strength of where you can even use Conqueror's Hockey and infuse it, you're probably not going to have a tough time with them, you know? But yeah, like a huge downscale for the God's Knights. Furthermore, just, enforcing that idea. We got Garling on the left looking all smiling and whatnot, and, hunting chained slaves and women and children for hours. And then 5 minutes against real fighters. It's just Garling packed up on the ground with a fucking sword in him. Like, come on, man. And the other big thing that I wanted to highlight was, like, this is how situation was fucked up, is that Eris was willing to kill herself and Teach before she was willing to let the Celestial Dragons take her. So, like, I'm curious to see more and more, like, what it is, like, the Davy clan is, why they're being persecuted so hard. Because, damn, dude, that's just, like, we've seen, obviously, Kuma and Hancock and all of them, like, be at the mercy of the Celestial Dragons. But I feel like this is, like, a new level. Somebody else had pointed this out, that this is, like, the first time that we see Saturn not really being able to handle a situation that required Emu's intervention in the end, So Emu at this time, maybe that thank you was like a little bit more sarcastic, because bro was already on thin ice when he got to Egghead. Like, hey, let's not have another God Valley happen, right? Where I have to step in and start dummy reversing people. And then Egghead happened, and like he felt the Joy Boy hockey and all of that. And I was like, all right, Saturn, you're fucking done. Get out of here. Garling, you're in. But yeah, like, it is kind of funny to think, like, Saturn had so many chances to like not feed into his own like ego. And yeah, he kind of just brought it all on himself. Yeah, amazing chapter. We got that break coming up next week, but it's whatever. Till next time.